Well, there there are more things to figure out. But the thing is, it has taken away the problems I had with Descript.
Were you using your video tooling to do all of this, or have you created some more things on top of that?
Well, largely I've been using my own video tooling. My originally I was going to use Descript. I was very excited about using Descript, using MCP for Descript. And the first video I made off of Descript, and it was okay. It's my worst performing one so far. But the and then as I started getting into the second one with Descript, like, what's going on here? Like, this is just all off target. What's the issue? And the issue apparently was that, like, to get this stuff done, and this I think becomes really kind of the magic of it, is these various systems offer some things through their APIs and MCPs, and some things you just got to go and open up the app and use it,
Yeah.
right? And the my video, which was ironically about computer use, was and where I was saying I'm going to be using Descript. Like, that was one where I left Descript because the MCP didn't really support doing edits. The only way you can do edit the Descript's approach to handling edits over its API was to submit prompts to their Underlord AI,
Wow. Yeah.
which is neat because that's a violation of one of your rules of headless AI. And I thought it was sort of fascinating to see how that went off the rails because I was like chewing up my Descript credits. Like, what happened here? And what happened was every time it wanted to make an edit, it had to ask the AI, it had to ask its AI, and there were all these little ripple effects, and the AI used a lot of their tokens, and that's how. Like, but why? I'm just trying to insert something right
Yeah.
here. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay, how can you do this without having to go use Underlord for everything? Because that's incredibly expensive and slow. Well, okay, well, I can just do it myself. I will, go use computer use. Like, great, let's use computer use for that. That sounds very on topic. Let's do that. And it went over, and the same thing that makes it easy for us, which is sort of putting things into like the transcript, right,
Mm.
or the timeline, which can be intuitive, is actually creates pixel precision that the AI has a much harder time with.
Interesting. Huh.
So then this AI was having a hard time manipulating it. I'm like, okay, well, look, what we're trying to do here, and this gets back to our conversation last week about, the 10%, right? And the out of the 10% of this I care about is that under the covers, there is a timeline here. The timeline's largely defined through words because these are video essays. And we want to be able to plot, things of visual interest. Because my marketing thesis for this is that put out my voice, my words, right? Those are things I do not want AI to be doing, and that creates authenticity and value.
Yeah.
But the visuals, nobody cares, or nobody cares how authentic those are, right? They expect computers to be making things, whatever. They just expect it to be done more well. And there is an expectation when you're doing video that you're sort of, providing them with some change of a video as you go through it. You can do a talk to the camera for 5 minutes. You can go give that a shot. What I have found is that the more flicks I put on the screen, like if every 30, 60 seconds there's something that they can be, consuming with their eyes as opposed to just consuming with their ears, it does much better. It's not boring to watch.
Mm.
Okay. So I'm gonna have it do that, and then that becomes the second big consideration. So the two considerations are if I want to be able to do some takes, and those takes are including things like, oh, now I gotta go down, look at the screen, and sort of looking at my next part of the script or whatever. Like, I don't want those to be in the video, right? So what is the easy way for me to make those things go away? And then that becomes like now you trimmed it down. And then how do you get that B-roll in there, right? The, like slides or generated video or just like pexels for stock b-roll or what have you, just to be giving that visual interest, to be keeping people coming along and sort of working on the ideas. And what I found was that those two relatively simple questions are certainly things that Descript can do, right? It can even do them well if you're a human, but the machine can handle both those things very easily because the schedule, the first part, like, oh, okay, well, I'll try to figure out where silences are, says the AI, and that's gonna be my hint of like where you're likely to have done cuts. And then second, I'm going to do and does that through the transcript, right? Through the just through ASR, right? Through automatic speech
Yeah.
recognition and like when stop do the cuts. And then I watch it, I could for find where a couple things where I didn't quite get it. I can watch it at 3x, right? So I can take a 30-minute video. In fact, just go to the beginning and end of each segment right? Because I don't even care about the middle part. What I care about is the beginning and the end, where like I sort of start drifting off the screen. Great, cut there, boom, next.
Nice.
And then I could spend just a few minutes doing that. So now I've sort of taken all that work that I would have had to do in Descript and sort of turned it into something very, very short by having it create basically a custom viewer for me that was nice and simple. And then the second half of it is like, okay, now you got the cut stuff, now you got cards. What do you want those to look like? And the and had some interactions about setting up the styles of the cards and the and getting it to mix in some b-roll and whatever, and it worked okay. And I just have a viewer that allows me to review the cards separately. I can just look at all of them just by themselves. I can look at them in the context of where they show up in the video, to make sure that I'm happy with it. Again, watch it at 3x, be able to get from beginning to end. It seems to be missing this. This has a spelling error. This has whatever, and get those things cleaned up, and it takes my actual production time down to a fraction of what my original roll time was, right? So it's figure out the idea, turn the idea into my first one was done as a script, and actually I think that turned out okay, but now subsequently they've been sort of more riffs, right? So like
Yeah.
8 scenes or something at riffs, and then riff on that for 90 seconds or something, and then then run it through the slicer, run it through the editor, and then it's going to go produce the 4K video, upload it to YouTube, do all the things, start creating shorts, and that last part is like takes hours and hours and hours, but I don't care,
Yeah.
not my time.
Yeah. That's really cool. I really like that a lot. Uh, so the actual mechanisms of this. So you've got is it just like a web app that kind of works with, are you actually doing this within AI at all, or how's it interacting with your code?
Yeah, so I think that's a really good question here. So um what I think I can do is video 6. I'll see if I can actually bring it up so you can see it. But
Okay.
yeah, what I did was I had it make a local web app, right?
Yep.
But the local web app is having a live relationship with a file on disk.
Okay.
Because that's really the job of the web app, is that we're editing this really a JSON file, right? That just says, hey, here's based on the original video, these are the scenes based on these starts and these ends,
Yep.
right? And based on that, you can say there's the final video is going to have these cards at these points, and these cards come from are in these based on these files, right? Once again, and it's all local to the repository, right? There's no sort of weird networky stuff going on
Well, yeah,
here.
which for video
This
slows you
creates
down, right? So it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's because it's just all sitting there in the repository. But this also creates something that creates a variant on an MCP app. Because what it's doing is creating an artifact that just runs inside the in-app browser of say ChatGPT or whatever, and they're all talking about the same files in the same directory,
Right.
which means I can look at the web app and have a reaction to it, talk about that reaction, and feed it directly into the AI.
Uh,
The AI proceeds to update things, that updates what I can see on the web app, and now I've got this. I can either directly interact
nice.
with the web app,
Okay, get it.
directly interact with the AI.
So, is it? I mean, so does the AI have? Is it an MCP, or is it just API calls into your web app to be able to do these actions that you've asked it to do?
It's neither. It's just a local. It's all local, so it's just editing local files.
Oh, it's just anything local files. So, okay. So basically, your web app is just a viewer onto it's like a way of aggregating those files together, and then the AI will just work on those files as it needs to. Nice, nice. That makes sense.
Right. Because the app isn't the end game. The video is the end game, right? So the app becomes a way for them both to be conversing about the data files
Yeah.
rather than the driver of the content, which is the actual job to be done here.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's actually pretty clever, and it makes sense particularly for video as well, because video is such a pain in the ass to deal with. I mean, in terms of the size of it and things. Huh. So what's next? What's next with this? I mean, I think it's a really interesting idea. And I mean, is it solving all the problems you had with Descript, or are there still things that you need to figure out?
There are a couple of features in Descript that I miss a little bit. Like Descript is a sound expert, so my sound, my backdrop, my background sound is not as good as like the studio sound feature that's sitting over in Descript,
Yeah,
which is a pity. But I sort of work my way past that. Like, what are other things I can do to improve on that? A lot of though of the video processing stuff is all just FFmpeg, which is something we've talked about
yeah,
before.
yeah, yeah,
And so it's not tremendously complicated. And if a lot of what they do is provide the user interface that just works with the transcript, well, I now have that because I can just run the transcript locally using Whisper X, which is an excellent model.
yeah,
I doubt that they're doing anything in terms of a better model because they've got cost to control, on their end. Uh, and the and then I've got the same, transcript-oriented view, except I've combined with like sort of scene starts and stops that make a lot more sense for the kinds of things I'm doing. So it's not something I would generalize to like, this is a great way to make any video. But for making a video essay,
yeah,
the way I'm making them,
yeah, yeah,
it works quite well. And this is like I've dialed it in to just being the part that I care about. Then all the parts that Descript doesn't do is really where my extension goes. So like,
yeah,
you're asking like what's next for it. Right now, the thing that is probably causing me the most frustration is the having gone from fast prototyping and hey, this is cool, and I can show it to you if you want. I'm now trying to get into getting it to be smarter about like so I don't have to ask it 3 times to make the cards in a not terrible way.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then that's getting that's sort of a new level of reliability because I'm discovering that the way we do a lot of the graveyard shift that I built before and the way I've been managing AI is based on doing technical work, but having it do content work has a bit of a different beat to it. So now I'm separating the idea of like what's in the technical flow and what's in the editorial flow. So that becomes, an interesting level of challenge that I've gotten here. But really, what I want to do is just give it better and better editorial taste, so it can be better at that visual part, much as I'm getting better at just sort of talking to the camera. And then I've got a backlog of like 50 or so topics that originally I was thinking about. Hey, I could do an essay about, or putting up on blog. But my thesis right now is, in fact, even one of them is about this thesis. That the authenticity comes from the human voice, and if I go write it, people will assume it's AI no matter what.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's true. It's an interesting challenge, right? And I think, as you say, authenticity is going to be increasingly important. So, I mean, this sort of thing, I think, is going to be a big differentiator if we're going to run it. That's really
And
cool.
then it took the thing that was really hard, like this managing all the YouTube stuff. Oh man, this stuff takes forever to get up there because it's like I don't want to babysit it.
Yeah,
And the idea that can handle compound commands is just fantastic. Like, go do this and then go do that part. And then from its point of view, it's really cheap. Of course, that was topic one of my videos. But because it's just waiting for things and it'll wait all day for me and cost me almost nothing as it waits for stuff to come back. And I get to focus my attention somewhere else, including maybe recording another video.
so is that you use computer use to do the uploading?
Using a combination of APIs and computer use,
Okay,
right?
okay,
So I'm trying to do is like you use APIs, use CLIs whenever you can because they are more reliable, they
yeah,
are faster, they are lower memory. But then and occasionally I'll have my mouse grabbed away from me by it needing to go click on something over in YouTube or whatever. But yeah, then it needs to because there's certain things like well like the collaborator stuff that you and I were talking about a little bit before,
yeah.
right? So like for the videos that we make from this, and maybe this will be one of those clips, we have the I can upload the video to YouTube using YouTube's API, but I can't invite a collaborator on a video through the API. So that means it just turns around, opens up studio youtube.com and goes in and invites the collaborator.